I'm Sam Otten, and with me is Jason Book, and we're going to share some brief thoughts about the DC Universe Rebirth Special, the 80-page book written by Geoff Johns with art by Gary Frank, Ethan Van Sciver, Ivan Reis, Phil Jimenez, colors by Brad Anderson and Hi-Fi. Really, Geoff Johns and a lot of his collaborators coming together for this big issue that's going to set off the Rebirth era of DC Comics. A big summer kicked off in a big way. A lot of people excited about this book, a lot of positivity out there. It was actually Dan DiDio and Jim Lee, the co-publishers of DC Comics, that tossed around the idea of Rebirth, and they basically knew that this summer they needed to kind of shake things up and try to bring things back to the roots of DC Comics and try to bring some more people into the fold. And they mentioned Rebirth, and Geoff Johns says, "Okay, well then, I that word is very special. I need to be involved in this." And then Geoff Johns took the creative control in terms of actually writing this issue, setting the stage for DC Comics, and having this big goal of setting hope and optimism back at the center of DC Comics and connecting back to some legacy issues, some characters that haven't been around for a while, bringing them back in. So we got those teased here. But Jason, I'm going to throw over to you. You made it through these 80 pages. What were your overall thoughts on this big issue?
First of all, that was great. Getting that much bang for the buck for $3 was great. I enjoyed the different artists' take on it. I enjoyed the writing by Johns, and I enjoyed the kind of setup they're giving us for the basic, the way the DC universe is going to be. So I like the framing device of Wally West being Kid Flash and how he's trying to come back. I liked several of the story points they put in there. Some of the stuff, we're going to talk about spoilers. I don't know if I'm crazy about the Joker being three different people, but we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, in Batman's books, that's got to be something they're going to work on. I did like the banter between Wally and the Flash. That was pretty cool. It finally happened. Barry Allen and Wally. I liked some of the lesser known DC characters coming back. You get Ted Kord and things like that. Was cool. So overall, I really enjoyed it. As far as Watchmen being kind of considered one of the reasons that the New 52 happened, etc., I don't know if I love that, but it seems like they're trying to make one big coherent universe, so good for them for trying to make it happen. Overall, I really enjoyed it. We'll see what happens with all the little bits and pieces they've kind of placed in there and how it all goes. But generally, I would say it was a really solid effort. Some of the things spinning out of it, I don't really know if it's going to be in a good place, for these characters that came before. Like, for characters like Superman, so much has gone on, I don't know. Characters like Batman, though, it seems like they kind of are immune to all these changes in a way. It's really good. I mean, having different Jokers is a pretty huge change for Batman's status quo, but not a lot's changed for him personally, which is cool. Whereas Superman, it's been different characters and there's been a lot of different convoluted stuff going on. So maybe by the end of this, Superman could use his own rebirth of sorts.
Yeah, I think Superman's going to be really intriguing going forward, with the pre-Flashpoint Superman as a father and married to Lois, and then his son Jonathan being a new sort of Superboy character. So I think there'll be some nice things for Superman fans to dig into. And part of this Rebirth special was definitely just planting the seeds or giving a little bit of foreshadowing for these different books that people might be interested in checking out. Some notable ones are Legion of Superheroes. There's a nod to those. Justice Society of America and Johnny Thunder might be coming back, it looks like. I'm really interested in the Blue Beetle because there's Jaime Reyes and Ted Kord together, and then Dr. Fate comes in. That one seems like it could be a cool new book. The two Adams coming together, Jessica Cruz as the new Green Lantern. And then there's also some stuff that maybe some longtime fans are going to be happy to see. Like, there's this allusion to Green Arrow and Black Canary, maybe kind of romantically being drawn to each other again because they haven't been that way in the comics for a while. Aquaman and Mira having the proposal happening. So definitely some stuff to pull forward and look ahead. And it also really did put an end to the New 52 era because Pandora, who's a character that really kind of represents the New 52. She appeared in all of the number ones for New 52 back in 2011. She had, the moment here where she kind of was calling out to this being that was partially responsible for the New 52, like you alluded to from Watchmen. So I'm assuming it's Dr. Manhattan because of the way that the explosion happened. So Pandora says, like, what have you done? I can't really go along with this. And Dr. Manhattan just blows her up. And so that's the end of the New 52 era there. But it's really interesting to think about Dr. Manhattan being involved, and the Watchmen connections, and having Watchmen, this huge pillar graphic novel, history classic, now being tied into the Justice League members and the main DC universe. And that's a pretty big deal. A lot of people are talking about it. For me, it's kind of fascinating to think about Dr. Manhattan representing what he represents in terms of the deconstruction of superheroes and the sort of grim, dark turn. And I would say, it really goes back to, and it says this in the Rebirth special, that it wasn't just the New 52 being kind of grim and dark and deconstructing things and trying to break characters down, that it was really back to the 80s with Frank Miller and Alan Moore. And that's, comic books since the 80s a lot of times felt like they had to be deconstructionist. And Geoff Johns is saying, like, okay, we've had that era of deconstruction for a few decades, but maybe now it's time to start a new era. And this issue felt like it was that big. Like, it was an era-changing issue of, we're going to have a battle of hope and optimism and constructing up heroes and building on, their past foundations. And the antagonist is literally going to be Dr. Manhattan, and it's going to be this idea of deconstructing or taking down, and going kind of gritty and dark with comic books. So I think that's pretty fascinating to think about. But I also like that Geoff Johns, he told that big meta-textual story and is setting that up for the universe going forward. But he also had the personal story that you alluded to, with Wally West coming back. And he's a character that's kind of been left behind in the New 52, largely. And having a personal story of Wally and Barry, and Wally and, his and Linda, and having them connected again, had a really good emotional core to this issue. And the climax of the issue being a hug between Wally and Barry, I think represents that idea of love. And Geoff Johns saying comic books can be about love and they can have that heart. And he showed it here. Like, he's not just telling us, he's showing it and trying to set that stage for the future. So yeah, a lot to digest here. And it's also amazing to think, like, how long has Geoff Johns been planning this? Because in his Superman books, he had this character, Mr. Oz, that just was kind of watching Superman. And so now that seems like, wow, is that actually Ozymandias? And is Ozymandias kind of in contact with Dr. Manhattan, which it seems like in the epilogue of this issue he is. So just amazing to think about that. And I'm curious to see where that will go. I don't think that the Watchmen stuff is going to cross over all the books. It sounds like maybe it's going to be mostly in Flash or Titans. That's my prediction. And Geoff Johns said kind of people that want to follow this Rebirth story should probably pick up Flash and Titans. There's a lot to follow. You mentioned Batman. To me, it's intriguing about the three Jokers. Like, we maybe aren't supposed to like it or hate it yet. We're just maybe supposed to be curious about it. So I'm going to follow that, see what they're going to do with it. But yeah, just we could probably talk about this all day. So we can kind of wrap up here. But did you have any final kind of overall thoughts and just your reactions to it? I'm pretty excited. Where are you kind of standing as you're digesting this issue?
I enjoyed it overall. It was a solid effort as usual. I like the artwork. It did what it was supposed to do, and it was solid. And I enjoyed reading it a lot. So, but I still want to see where we go with this, and if it was something that was absolutely essential, for the DC universe. For the time being, though, it's pretty cool. It's nice to see some solid stuff coming out from DC, and it does set things up in an interesting way for things going forward. So we'll see if we get payoffs on all those little nuggets that were in the book, and I'm looking forward to see what comes next, as usual.
I'm looking forward to it too, and that's coming from a New 52 fan. I mean, overall, I tended to like a lot of what was happening in New 52, but this has me even more excited. And even though it's a change, continuing on from New 52, but making some adjustments, even so, I'm excited about where they're going. I'm very excited about the books coming out in June, and also excited that some of them are coming twice a month, because then the story can kind of get some momentum and go strong. So I'm going to be picking up more books than usual, at least here at the beginning, but the $2.99 price makes that a little bit more doable. But looking forward to it. We'll have to chat about some of the books that are coming in the Rebirth era together.